I still remember the exact moment my younger brother decided to humiliate the man who built his entire life. It happened in front of our whole family, at a big dinner table, under warm lights, with everyone smiling, laughing, and celebrating success. My elder brother sat there quietly, like always, calm, polite, almost invisible. And then my younger brother stood up, looked around the table, and said the words that changed everything. From today, my in-laws will handle the restaurant. My brother can step away. He has done enough. The room went silent. But what nobody knew was this. The restaurant did not belong to my younger brother. Not the lease. Not the core business license. Not the legal foundation of that beautiful premium restaurant everyone admired. Everything was in my elder brother's name. And instead of arguing, instead of creating a scene, he only smiled, picked up his spoon, finished his dinner, and even clapped. Yes, he clapped. That was the moment my younger brother thought he had won. That was the moment he made the biggest mistake of his life. Because the very next morning, my elder brother sold the entire business setup, transferred the lease, and sent an eviction notice to the same brother who had just tried to throw him out. And when that notice reached the restaurant, the same people who had laughed at him started crying. But before I tell you what happened that morning, you need to understand who my elder brother really was. My elder brother's name was Arjun, and Arjun was not the kind of man people noticed easily. He was not loud. He was not flashy. He did not wear expensive watches or drive luxury cars. He was the kind of man who gave, helped, carried, and sacrificed without asking for applause. From the time we were young, Arjun was the one who suffered so the rest of us could breathe easier. When our father got sick, Arjun left his own plans behind and started working 2 jobs. While other boys were wasting money, Arjun was saving every single dollar. He never complained. He never said, "I am tired." He never said, "Why me?" He just kept moving. He worked in a warehouse in the mornings, then delivered food at night. Sometimes he came home with sore hands and bloodshot eyes, but still smiled at us and asked, "Did you eat?" That was Arjun. That was my brother. And my younger brother, Rohan, lived a completely different life. Rohan was charming, confident, good-looking, the type of man people quickly liked. He had big dreams, but no patience. He wanted success fast. He wanted the credit before the effort. He wanted respect before responsibility. And when Rohan told Arjun one day that he wanted to open a premium restaurant, Arjun believed in him. That was the first mistake. Or maybe it was not a mistake. Maybe it was love. Because Arjun loved his younger brother with the kind of love that does not calculate risks. He only asked one thing: work hard, be honest, don't waste this chance. Rohan promised everything. He said, "Bye. I will make you proud. This restaurant will be ours, not mine." Our. That word mattered to Arjun. So he used his hard-earned savings. Every dollar he had built from years of sacrifice. He found the location. He paid for the setup. He worked on the interior design. He ordered the furniture. He handled the kitchen installation. He even used his own contacts to get the business running smoothly. It was not a small place. It was premium, elegant, the kind of restaurant people took pictures of before eating. The walls had a modern design. The lighting was warm and expensive. The menu was carefully planned. The location was perfect. And when the restaurant finally opened, everyone praised Rohan. Everyone. People said, "What a brilliant young businessman." They said, "Rohan is lucky." They said, "He has a great future." And Arjun? Arjun stood a little behind him, smiling softly like a proud older brother. That was enough for him. He never corrected anyone. He never said, Actually, I paid for this. He never said, I am the reason this place exists. He believed the work would speak. He believed his brother would remain grateful. He believed family loyalty meant something. But money changes people. Success changes people faster. And praise can poison weak hearts. At first, Rohan remained respectful. He would say, Bai handles the setup. He would say, Bai knows the business. He would say, we built this together. But as the restaurant became famous, something began to change. The customers increased. The profits increased. The pictures on social media increased. And with every increase, Rohan's ego also grew. Then his wife, Mira, entered the picture. And honestly, she made everything worse. Mira came from a family that valued image more than character. She was sharp, polished, and proud. She looked at people the way some people look at furniture, whether useful or not. She quickly started treating Arjun like he was just an extra member in the room, not the real owner, not the man who sacrificed everything, just a quiet man sitting in the corner, a silent partner. That was the phrase she used. I heard her say it once at a family lunch. She laughed and said, Arjun is nice, but he does not really do anything now. He just sits around like a silent partner. Arjun heard her. I saw the way his face changed for 1 second. Just 1 second. Then he lowered his eyes and ate quietly. That was the worst thing about Arjun. He tolerated too much. He believed silence was dignity. He believed if he stayed calm, people would eventually understand. They never do. Instead, silence becomes permission in the minds of arrogant people. After that, Mira became bolder. She started inviting her own relatives to the restaurant like they were guests of honor. She made decisions without asking Arjun. She changed suppliers. She rearranged staff responsibilities. She acted like she had built the place herself. And Rohan, instead of stopping her, became exactly like her. He started walking differently, talking differently, laughing differently. He would call Arjun Bai in public, but behind closed doors he started talking like Arjun was old-fashioned, slow, and useless. He even said one day, Bai, this place needs fresh management. You have done enough. Let me take it from here. Arjun looked at him and asked, Take it from where? Rohan laughed and said, You know what I mean. You are not needed in daily operations anymore. Not needed. Those words hit me hard even when I heard them. Because Arjun had not only built the restaurant, he had built Rohan's entire future. Yet now, he was being treated like a burden. Still, Arjun stayed calm. He said, Do what you think is right. I only want the business to succeed. That was Arjun. He could have protected himself. He could have pulled the truth out immediately. He could have reminded everyone whose name the lease was under, whose signature was on the core business license, whose money had built the foundation. But he chose patience. He thought maybe Rohan would wake up. Maybe pride would settle. Maybe family would matter again. Then came the family get-together. It was a huge dinner. One of those long, expensive evenings where the whole family gathers for celebration, gossip, forced smiles, and hidden tension. Everyone was there. Uncles, aunts, cousins, elders, children, people who only called when they wanted something. The restaurant was full. The tables were arranged beautifully. The food smelled amazing. Music played softly in the background. And Rohan loved that night because he had an audience. That was all he wanted, an audience for his success. He dressed sharply. He walked around like the king of the place. Mira sat beside him with that satisfied smile people wear when they are about to insult someone politely. Arjun sat a little apart, as always. Quiet, composed. He was wearing a simple shirt, no expensive watch. No need for attention. He looked like a man who had nothing to prove, and that made people underestimate him even more. Dinner started. People complimented the food. They praised the decoration. They praised Rohan. Rohan enjoyed every word. He kept nodding, smiling, taking credit without saying it directly. Then halfway through dinner, he stood up and tapped his glass. The room slowly quieted. Everyone turned to him, and I remember thinking, something is wrong. He looked proud. Too proud. He glanced at Mira. Then he looked at Arjun. And he said, I want to thank all of you for coming. This restaurant has grown beautifully, and now it is time for the next step. Nobody spoke. He continued, from today, my in-laws will handle the management. They have the experience, the connections, and the vision to take this place even higher. I felt my stomach drop. My mother looked confused. My aunt frowned. One of my cousins whispered, what does that mean? Rohan smiled and said, it means Arjun Bhai can step away now. He has done enough. We appreciate his help, but the business needs professional management. Help. He called Arjun's sacrifice help. He called years of sweat and savings help. And then, in front of everyone, he added the final knife. Bhai is basically a silent partner. He does not need to be involved in the daily operations anymore. The room fell completely still. Even the music seemed to fade. Everyone looked at Arjun. Arjun did not move. He did not protest. He did not raise his voice. He only looked at his younger brother with a strange, calm expression. No shock, not anger, just understanding. The understanding of a man who has finally seen somebody for who they really are. Rohan kept talking, trying to appear strong. He said things like, this is just business. He said, no hard feelings. He said, family should understand growth. Mira nodded beside him as if they had just announced a promotion instead of a betrayal. Then people began to look uncomfortable. One uncle cleared his throat. One aunt stared at her plate. A cousin whispered, this is embarrassing. But nobody defended Arjun. Not a single person. And that was another painful truth. People love a sacrifice when they do not have to make it themselves. Then suddenly, Arjun smiled. A soft, almost peaceful smile. He lifted his glass, took a slow sip, picked up his spoon, finished his dinner, and then, right there, with the whole room watching, he started clapping. Slowly, calmly, once, twice, then a few more times. Everyone stared at him in confusion. Rohan frowned. What are you doing? Arjun looked at him and said, very gently, you spoke so confidently. I just wanted to appreciate your courage. That one sentence made Rohan even more proud, because he thought Arjun had accepted defeat. He thought Arjun was weak. He thought Arjun had finally understood that the restaurant was no longer his place. But Arjun was not defeated. He was deciding, and his decision had already been made long before dinner started. He had spent the last few weeks quietly preparing everything. No shouting, no threats, no emotional speeches, just quiet legal work. The kind, arrogant people never notice until it is too late. You see, the commercial property lease had always been in Arjun's name. The core business license was also in Arjun's name. The legal documents, the controlling rights, the base authority, all of it belonged to him. Rohan had only been managing the daily face of the restaurant. That was all. He had been standing on a foundation he did not build. And now he had just insulted the man who owned that foundation. That night, Arjun came home, sat alone in his room, and did not even look angry. That was the scariest part. A man who screams is still emotionally attached. A man who becomes silent is already done. By morning, he had finalized everything. He sold the entire business setup. He transferred the lease to a major food corporate chain. Not a small buyer. Not a local competitor. A major chain with lawyers, capital, and immediate power. The kind of company that does not negotiate with ego. By the time Rohan reached the restaurant the next morning, everything had changed. There was a new team standing outside. There were legal notices in hand. There were boxes being prepared. And the first envelope he opened was the eviction notice. Rohan read it once. Then again. His face turned pale. Mira came rushing out of the car, still half-dressed for breakfast and already annoyed. "What is this?" she snapped. Rohan could barely speak. He said, No, this can't be right." But it was right. The notice was clear. The lease had been sold. The restaurant property had changed hands. The business rights had been legally transferred. They were no longer operating in a space they controlled. And when they finally called Arjun, he answered on the first ring. His voice was calm. Too calm. Rohan shouted, "What did you do?" Arjun said, "I did what you asked." Rohan shouted louder, "You sold everything behind my back?" Arjun replied, "No, I sold what was mine, after you announced I was no longer needed." Those words landed like bricks. Mira grabbed the phone. "How dare you? Do you know what this will do to us?" Arjun answered, "Now you understand what your words did to me." Then he paused and said something I will never forget. "I built this with my savings, my labor, and my faith. You both turned my generosity into your pride. I did not take back revenge. I took back ownership." There was nothing more to say after that, because every lie had ended. Every fake smile had ended. Every act of entitlement had ended. Within days, the corporate chain took full control. The restaurant stayed beautiful, but the name changed. The staff received new instructions. The former management was gone, and Rohan, who had once walked around like a king, stood outside staring at the locked doors like a stranger. Mira cried in anger first, then in panic, then in shame. Because people who build themselves on somebody else's foundation always collapse the moment the foundation moves. Family members started calling. The same people who had stayed silent at the dinner table now had 1,000 opinions. How could this happen? Didn't they know the property was in Arjun's name? Why would Rohan speak like that? That is always how it goes. After the damage, everybody becomes wise. But wisdom after betrayal is just noise. As for Arjun, he never bragged. He never held a press conference. He never went around telling people he had won. He simply moved on. He invested his money elsewhere. He chose peace over attention. And that, to me, was the real victory. Not because he destroyed his brother. He did not. He simply stopped allowing himself to be used. That is the part people misunderstand. Justice is not always loud. Sometimes justice looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like a smile at the dinner table. Sometimes it looks like letting arrogant people talk until their own words bury them. And sometimes the strongest revenge is not anger. It is paperwork. It is patience. It is calm. It is letting someone expose their own greed before you remove the ground beneath their feet. I used to think the most painful betrayal was when someone stabbed you in the back. Now I know the truth. The worst betrayal is when someone stands in front of you, accepts your sacrifice, enjoys your labor, and then acts like they did you a favor. Rohan did not lose the restaurant because Arjun was cruel. He lost it because he forgot one simple thing. Respect the hand that built your throne. Because the day that hand withdraws, you are no longer a king. You are just standing in a borrowed room. And when that room belongs to someone else, you do not get to make demands. You only get the door. So yes, Arjun clapped that night. He smiled. He stayed quiet. And that silence became the loudest punishment of all. Because the next morning, when the eviction notice arrived, Rohan finally learned the truth. The man he called useless had been the only reason he ever had anything to lose. And by the time he understood that, it was already gone. If this story touched your heart, remember this one thing. Never mistake silence for weakness. Never mistake kindness for helplessness. And never forget that the person who builds your dream can also walk away and leave you standing in your own pride.